Well, hello. This is Traveling Methodist, and uh, I just wanted to try something different here. I've been making short little videos about my visits to various national park sites, and they've just been just videos with no audio really up to this point. But I want to do something different. I see a lot of these videos on national parks, Yellowstone included, and I thought for some time that I sure have some of my own thoughts I'd like to share. And so that's what I'm going to hopefully start doing a little bit more frequently. Of course, continue to put out the short little videos on these national park sites. And but so what I'm going to do today is this with this first video with really kind of a slideshow is just the first idea that I had is to talk about the geysers at Yellowstone because I see a lot of videos out there that talk about the geysers of Yellowstone, but people usually tend to focus on the big performers, the ones that you can go into the Old Faithful Visitor Center, you can get the times for, and you can plan your day around seeing there. Go see Old Faithful probably multiple times, maybe get to see Grand, one of the best in the entire park. Get to see Daisy or Castle Geyser, and go up to Great Fountain. And then there's other ones, and of course Riverside. Sometimes people will forget Riverside, and I think that's because it is farther down the trail, closer to Morning Glory. So it takes a while to get there. But if you can see Riverside go off, you really should. It is one of the most picturesque, beautiful geysers erupting over the Firehole River, directly into the Firehole River. And it's really one of the best geysers in the entire park. Um, and there might be a few others here that won't be on this list that are pretty good geysers. I thought about including like Lion Geyser is actually a real great geyser to get to see. Um, but I wanted to pick out what I thought was just 10 different geysers that are worth seeing. And in some cases, you won't see them go off, but I wanted to include them anyways because I think um, there's something to be said about them. They're significant in some way. These aren't the big performers. These are, those are the S tier. These are the A tier in my opinion, and they need to be given their due. They're great geysers, and in some cases, you have a pretty good chance of seeing them if you're visiting Yellowstone for a few days, and you spend a lot of time around the uh, the geyser basins, the upper or lower geyser basin in particular. So that's what we're going to do today in this video. So we're going to start in the Upper Geyser Basin. And there are a lot of great geysers I could highlight here in the Upper Geyser Basin, but I want to mention a couple in particular. The first one is going to be Sawmill. Okay, Sawmill Geyser is not too far from Grand. There's kind of a complex of geysers there that are interconnected. And so Sawmill is frequently pretty active, but sometimes there are other geysers in this area that might take over the main activity for a season or for a period of time. So these are always the questions to ask the ranger at the visitor center before going out on the boardwalk. But Sawmill is a lot of these geysers, these smaller geysers, I would just describe as being fun. It may have something to do with their cone or the pool which they erupt out of or the eruption itself. And Sawmill is a little bit of both. It's a large, shallow pool, a lovely pool. The burst of waters are they come out like a fan-like spray, and it was named for like when it erupted. Some people equated it with like the a sawmill like appearance. And another fun thing about this geyser, well, you may consider this fun or not, but when it erupts, it will sometimes get water, splash water onto the boardwalk. And so you might get yourself drenched a little bit if you're in the wrong or right place at the right time. And sometimes little children really like this, maybe less so their parents, but it's a great geyser. And as I said before, it's really known for its connection to other local springs. In fact, there's even deeper and connections with um, pools and geysers as far as away as Grand, and that what makes this whole area just so incredibly fascinating. And speaking of connections, we're going to move on to the next one, or next two here. Actually, it's Grotto Fountain and South Grotto Fountain Geyser, and they're part of the Grotto Geyser complex. Grotto would be in this area the one that gets the most attention because it's very unusual and strange looking, crater and cone where there are trees that have been just covered in the geyserite. But I want to really focus more on these two others that are part of the complex, Grotto Fountain and South Grotto Fountain, uh, because they can be active. Sometimes they can be indicators for grotto. Sometimes I believe they can even delay grotto. But one of the things that is interesting about these two geysers is one of them operates more as a cone type geyser and the other as a fountain type geyser. And I've gotten to see this before, but to see a cone and a fountain, like the two kind of the main types of geysers eruptions in the park going off simultaneously right next to each other is interesting. You can certainly see the contrast, and everyone might have their favorite, but it's interesting and unique to see going off at the same time. The next one I'd like to highlight is kind of not too far from this area. I think it's Oblong Geyser. You have to go back closer towards where we came from Sawmill and Grand, but not too terribly far because it's in its own area. There's nothing else right up next against it, and in fact, the trail itself is a little bit further away from Oblong than in some of these other cases, which is one reason why it may not get as much attention, especially if it's not going out. It's just you can tell there's a pool out there, but there's not necessarily indication that there's anything significant out there. There's no seating, there's no and no extension out there at all. But Grotto or Oblong really should get some more attention because so when it does erupt, and it erupts frequently enough that a lot of people might get to see it. It's not terribly high, but it has a tremendous volume that erupts out of it. It's just a huge volume, and it's just an immense amount of water that just releases and flows down into the Firehole River, kind of on its backside. And you can tell if you see it erupt, you can tell. Not terribly high, but a lot of water. And so that alone makes it quite impressive. Okay, the next geyser after Oblong. Okay, we're going to move on to the Black Sand Basin to Cliff Geyser. It's a small cone geyser. It's located in the Black Sand Basin. The description I have said it was along the Firehole River, but that's not case. Not the case. It's actually along. I need to double check this, but I believe it's Iron Creek. So I'll try to correct that if I'm incorrect about that. It's right up against this creek, and it even has this ledge that it's just right there, and so it kind of is what gives it its name. It's the eruptions are described as irregular, but they occur often enough that a lot of people have gotten to enjoy this geyser, and it's very scenic. The way that that little ledge and drops into the creek is where it gets its name from. And if you get to see going off, it's another fun one. I think children really like it. It has a nice viewing area and not a big geyser, but also one it's fun. It says it's about 20 to 40 feet high. So a very enjoyable one. So far, all of these are ones that you can get to see, and you have a good chance of getting to see them. But the next one, not so much. But I really wanted to highlight this because this has always been one of my favorite, and that's Excelsior Geyser. It is one of the largest geothermal features in all of Yellowstone. It's located in Midway Geyser Basin. Um, so it's when it's active and when it was active like this was some time ago. I believe like in the early 1900s. It would erupt to more than 300 feet wide and 300 feet wide, like high and wide. So there, I've seen some pictures of this, and it just looks like a massive amount of water. I would imagine only eruptions from something like Excelsior could rival what you would see out of like giant geyser or steamboat geyser. It's just in terms of just sheer massiveness. Um, so I think because it's in Midway Geyser Basin, sometimes it gets overlooked a little bit, but uh, it does also have a fascinating crater because it really it is a crater. Yeah, and it's just even kind of mysterious and a little bit eerie. And one thing I always noticed all the times I've been up there is how frequently you could find someone's pair of sunglasses or hats that had fallen off down into the crater and just sitting there down below, not in the water, but to a place where if you lose something down there, you're not getting it back. Um, So, but like I said before, it's a fascinating feature. It would have been amazing to see it absolutely erupt, but because it's in Midway, it tends to be overlooked because of Grand Prismatic Spring. Even more so because more and more people are going to the lookout to see Midway than actually walking through it. Although still, I mean, that's often a very, very full parking lot. But it just makes it between those two features, it makes Midway a a pretty enjoyable little smaller in terms of size of the boardwalk and the space there small, but the features, man, they're as large as you can get um in Yellowstone. The next one is Imperial Geyser. Now, Imperial Geyser, the way you get to Imperial Geyser is if you take the same trail that takes you to the Grand Prismatic Spring Overlook, if you keep going on that and then you turn to go down to see Fairy Falls, you can also from there get to Imperial Geyser. And that makes a great 7 something mile hike. I've done that a couple times. And I would say that if you just go to Fairy Falls, you're missing out. You should try to do both Fairy Falls and Imperial at the same time. If you do go to Imperial, uh, I hope that you're lucky enough to see it go off. Both times I went down there, I went on this hike. I got to see it erupting, and I believe that it is pretty frequent in its eruptions, and it throws water quite a ways. It's not a small geyser, but it's a also very interesting looking. The hot spring and the part where the water erupts from. It's um, it's very, very pretty. It's very colorful surroundings, and I recommend you'll see the pictures here that I'm probably on the screen at this moment. You'll see just how interesting looking this geyser is. So let's keep on moving because the next one I want to talk about, we're going to go up to the lower geyser basin, the and the Fountain Paint Pot Trail, and this is Fountain Geyser. Now, the first thing that would want to say is this could be a bit confusing to some folks because there is more than one geyser in Yellowstone that has a name like Fountain. In fact, nearby you have the much more famous Great Fountain Geyser, which is certainly well worth getting to see go off. It's one of the highlights of all of Yellowstone to see Great Fountain. But Fountain Geyser and its twin, less active twin Morning Geyser are there part of the Fountain Paint Pots boardwalk. And it's a pretty decent size fountain. I believe it erupts to 50 feet high, and it's fairly frequent. Morning Geyser erupts to even higher, but is less frequent. And I believe there is something about that sometimes they will erupt in concert, and getting to see that is like a real treat. Um, the next one I want to highlight is we're going to go to the Fountain Flats, the not Fountain Flats, but to the same the Firehole Lake Drive, where you can see the Great Fountain Geyser. If you keep going down a little bit on that, you'll come to White Dome Geyser. And White Dome Geyser, sometimes I think its eruptions are made fun of a little bit because they're not particularly impressive. But the cone on the geyser is one of the largest in all of Yellowstone. It's immense and is only really dwarfed by Castle Geyser. But its eruptions are just a very, very narrow jet of hot water. And but they're frequent enough that there's again a good chance that a lot of people have gotten to see this go off. They may not leave impressed by the eruption, but they should be impressed by the cone. It is an impressive cone. I got one more to share here, and I think in my opinion, I'm leaving the best for last because this is one of my favorites on all of Yellowstone, and that's Echinus Geyser. It's in the Norris Geyser Basin, not terribly far from Steamboat Geyser. It is when it is active, when it had been active in the past, it is just a fun geyser to watch. It erupts from 30 to 85 feet high, so it's a pretty good sized geyser. It has some height to it. It is fountain, and it used to be one of the most active geysers in Yellowstone. You could always count on it. It was one geyser you could always count on seeing in the Norris Geyser Basin. But then it's become in the 1990s and into this in the last 20 years, it's become unfortunately much more unpredictable. And I haven't checked this recently, but when the last time it actually went off, and that's too bad. It was a geyser that was significant enough that they actually built viewing stands for it, and that should be a key. Whenever you see places for a lot of people to sit, you're talking about something that's significant, and not very many geysers. You can count on, less than two hands the number of geysers that have significant amount of seating. And Echinus used to be one of these geysers. And one of the things I remember as a kid getting to watch is you could literally watch the water. So when it would go off, when it would erupt, it would empty the crater, and then it would begin to slowly fill up. And while it is filling up, you could sit there and you could watch. We would actually do this. Like you pick a rock or you pick something in it, and you watch the water until it um, fills up over that whatever you picked up, and you can keep watching. And then when it starts to overflow, soon after that there's going to be an eruption. And so I don't know if that was a way that parents trick their children into watching, sitting still for a few moments, give them a rest, but it worked with me, and it was certainly a fun one. And I would just love to see the day if he kindness could ever become predictable again. It's a great geyser. So there was actually 10 of them in all. These are just a few selections. I would never say this is a comprehensive list because there are as many geysers in all of Yellowstone as there is. That there are plenty others that could be highlighted. But these are ones I would say do form somewhat of the next tier down from the big ones, the ones that everyone goes to Yellowstone to see. But you may see one or two or maybe even three of those. But some of these other ones that I mentioned, there's a pretty good chance you can get to see them, a few of these as well. And you might just go away loving some of these just about as much. So I encourage you next time you go to Yellowstone to consider checking any of these out. And so appreciate any comments or thoughts on any of these geysers, any stories or about your experience with any of these. And I'll see you next time. Hope to do a few more of these videos coming up. God bless.